Welcome to another edition of The Set Piece with Scottish Sun Sport. I'm Bill Leckie. With me today is my esteemed colleague David Friel. How are you?
Yeah, I'm standing in for Robert today. I've already told Robert I was going to say it's like upgrading a Honda Civic for a Ferrari.
Aye.
But we'll let him off. He's been working 25/8 for the last
25/8.
25/8 for the last few days.
My favourite line of the Danny Rohl press conference.
One of the best quotes ever in Scottish football history. 25/8. It was just the way it was just.
It was just so cool. As if,
working 25/8.
This is Kevin Thelwell talking about his boy.
But Robert's been working 25/8. Well done to him. All of the Rangers story.
Sometimes he's 26/9 on this Rangers story.
No,
he's been magnificent.
He's been magnificent.
He has been. Robert Grieve has been ahead of the curve on this
He
whole thing.
shocked the world when he revealed that Danny Rohl, who was out, we could call him Danny Rohl, is back in.
He's back in again.
And lo and behold, he's now the Rangers manager.
Now Robert's in Bergen for tomorrow night. Rangers against Brann against Rangers. One of three ties involving Scottish sides. We'll come to the European stuff in a little while. But we sat and watched the Danny Rohl unveiling yesterday. Andrew Cavenagh was up there. Patrick Stewart was up there. Kevin Thelwell was up there. The manager himself, obviously the head coach himself, What did you make of it?
I thought he came across really well.
Yes.
To be perfectly honest with you, and look, it's just words, it's just a first impression, but I liked the way he spoke. I think the key point, and he didn't go down philosophies and ideologies, I can't even say that word. He spoke about winning, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Bill. And he spoke about winning first, a style of play comes after that. So I think
Absolutely.
he was mature enough and wise enough to make that clear.
Yeah.
And look, the proof will be in the pudding in terms of how Rangers play. Look, it's very early days. He's coming into such a frantic spell of games.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's then a break, and then there's an even more frantic spell of games. So I think he was very wise just to come out and tell the fans, look, we'll see what happens, style of play, but first foremost, you need to win games.
I was fascinated. I wrote about this morning, and we're doing this on Wednesday morning, so I wrote in the paper this morning about Andrew Cavenagh, the chairman, and his such a glowing testimonial to Danny Rohl, and I am baffled now as to why Danny Rohl didn't get the job before Russell Martin, because he says, he's incredible, he takes tactics and he brings them on the park and he makes them work, and he pulls the fans and the players together, and he's got a hard edge to him, and he's this and he's that, and I'm sitting there going, wow, this is like his agent talking.
I know.
And I'm thinking, well, how did they end up with Russell Martin, who ticked absolutely none of the boxes that Cavenagh talked about? Russell Martin talked tactics and couldn't make them work. He couldn't get a tune out of players, whether it was the players he inherited or whether it was the players he signed. The fans deserted him within minutes of him arriving, basically. It makes the mistake of Russell Martin look even deeper, and I wonder whether Andrew Cavanagh's words were slightly pointed at Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell.
I don't know. I mean, what I would say was, before we got into all that, I think fair play to Andrew Cavenagh, to Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart for fronting up, because not all clubs and not all hierarchy do that. So I think to put themselves out there yesterday to answer questions, I know they subsequently did other interviews, they spoke to fans, credit to them for that. I think it was a good PR move, good communication, well done to them. I totally agree with you. As you're sitting listening to Andrew Cavenagh talking about Danny Rohl, you are thinking, what a gem this is. You know, where did he come from? He was known to Rangers in the summer. I think Rangers probably spoke to him in the summer.
Absolutely.
He's also a guy who, let's be honest, was probably third choice for this job. And he was up against one or two guys who don't really fit the same criteria as him. So, yeah, it did leave me, while I think credit to him for speaking out, it did leave me a bit confused as to why he wasn't pursued further in the summer, and why when Russell Martin did depart, it was just that's what it is. Because if you have got the courage of your convictions and you think he is the perfect fit for Rangers and your model, don't go chasing Steven Gerrard, don't go chasing Kevin Muscat, just give him the job.
The thing is, Kevin Thelwell said the day Russell Martin was appointed, he is the perfect fit for Rangers, and he was absolutely the least perfect fit imaginable. And right away you start to say, well, somebody's judgment's out here, and I wonder I'd love to know how. I mean, Andrew Cavenagh said in a subsequent interview yesterday, we didn't screw this up. So he's also been asked, have you screwed this up? We haven't screwed this up. They have screwed it up, because they appointed Russell Martin, who was a disaster.
I think he's been very careful with what he says. I mean, he was asked, did you screw it up? It looked a bit of a shambles from the outside. Now, his words, I think, were, it looked a bit clunky, but it was very smooth from the inside. And I think what he was saying is, we were having simultaneous talks with everybody. Nobody was ever offered the job. There was never a fancy letter sent to someone. It was more, we were speaking to all of them about terms, about staff and about that, and it never came to. Now, I don't necessarily believe that, because I think if Steven Gerrard had wanted the job, or they'd come to
He would have had
Steven
the job.
Gerrard with the job. I think if Kevin Muscat had been available just now, and also everything had tied in with what he expected, I think he would have had the job.
Yeah.
It's now ended up with Danny Rohl. Now, I think the fact that Danny Rohl removed himself from the process, and Andrew Cavenagh has admitted that in an interview this morning. Yes, he did. He kind of backed off and withdrew, but I think that tells you everything. I think Danny Rohl didn't think he was getting the job. So I think it's probably been a bit clever with words to say that nobody was ever offered the job, but they've come to it.
There was a little bit of rewriting history yesterday. I think especially with Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell, who obviously have been under a lot of personal pressure, who are very keen to make it look, we got here, we're here, let's reset and start again, which is fine if Danny Rohl hits the ground running the way. I mean, my feeling was, listening to him, that he expects to get, I don't think he expects to go and win in Bergen, particularly, but we'll wait and see. But I think he expects to get 20% more out of every player immediately just by working with him for 2 days. Yeah. And if that's the case, Rangers fans will give him, if they see a team that plays at a higher intensity with more purpose and isn't passing the buck to each other the way they have been for a long time now, they'll say, OK, let's give this boy a chance. And they'll start to accept that the games that come up, Kelly in the league, Hibs in the league, Celtic in the League Cup, Roma in Europa League, if he doesn't win them all, it's not his fault, because he's been left holding. I think this maybe cuts him a little bit of slack, the way things have turned out.
Of course it does, but it was the same with Stevie Smith. I mean, you're saying that Rangers will get a 20%. Stevie Smith probably got another 50%, or 80% out of Rangers in the first half against Dundee United. But the second half just reverted to type. So,
because as soon as Jim Goodwin went, look, let's just get in their faces and stop trying to play football, Rangers were, I've got to say, they were bottle merchants. They just backed right off the game. They went from 25 touches in the Dundee United box in the first half to 8 in the Dundee United box in the second half. And yet again, they had to rely on James Tavernier turning up. The only guy I've seen in that Rangers team, apart from maybe Jack Butland, bit of John Souttar, who's got proper backbone and is willing to stand up and be counted. Yeah,
and that's what. But Danny Rohl needs to, I don't think you can just put that into players, but Danny Rohl needs to find or cultivate, or however he's going to do it, more guys with that spirit.
No, he did that at Sheffield Wednesday, because they were almost a lost cause when he went in for relegation to League One. He rescued them in the first season, he got them to 12th in the second season, in a club that was an absolute shambles, and remains a shambles.
He wouldn't have been my pick, right? No. I think someone like Kevin Muscat, with his background and his experience, and experience is a key word, right? A Kevin Muscat or a Derek McInnes, to me, would have been a safer choice. I think Danny Rohl might go one or two ways, Bill, and you speak to people who say, very talented coach, great ideas. He showed a lot of steel, pardon the pun, when he was at Sheffield Wednesday. And he could be the next big thing in coaching. But he doesn't have experience. And I think with the Rangers job, there's always going to be concerns and question marks over someone who doesn't have 300-400 games behind him, because I think whatever he's experienced as a number two at big clubs, as a number two with the German national team, as a Sheffield Wednesday, his own man there, is not going to be anywhere near what he's about to experience here.
And if he had a sporting director above him and a CEO above him who had his back and who were respected by the fans, it might give him a bit of a cushion. But these two guys are now under so much pressure, because if Danny Rohl doesn't deliver, I just don't know where either of them go. And I thought Thelwell came across fairly well in the press conference, but I thought that Patrick Stewart looked really uncomfortable. Yeah,
he did look uncomfortable, and I think again he's probably trying to justify the mistake of Russell Martin, the gamble of Danny Rohl off the backdrop of Steven Gerrard and Kevin Muscat not working out, and also been asked about the fact that the fans at every opportunity are basically saying, get out the club. So I don't think he's a natural public speaker. It's nothing against him. I just don't, in the background at Man United, I don't think he was ever really had to be front facing. I think he's been put in a situation here where he's having to face a lot. His boss that was sitting next to him basically said he has made mistakes. So I think both of them are under pressure.
Absolutely.
And Patrick Stewart is obviously chief executive and said yesterday, I'm responsible for everything that happens in the day-to-day running. But I also think the pressure on Kevin Thelwell, given that he oversees the recruitment and spoke about Chermiti and guys like that, is huge. Well, because he has, and again he did it with Chermiti yesterday, he said, I believe in these players, these players will come good. And he is, getting into stuff about his boy and stuff like that, but he is solely to me, responsible for driving the recruitment.
Well, he's the one that said Martin was the perfect fit for Rangers. He was the one who called Russell Martin one of the best coaches he's ever worked with in his time, and he's worked with Jan Ancelotti's and Marco Silva's and whoever else, so that's fine. Yeah, he has put himself, and I think also putting his boy Robbie in, and he's backed him to the hilt. Yesterday, I think he's put himself under a huge amount of pressure. So it begins for Rangers in Bergen, 5:45 our time. Same time as Aberdeen play in Athens, and then later on at night, Celtic against Sturm Graz. What do you think Rangers, which Rangers will turn up?
That's what we don't know. That is genuinely what we don't know, because you saw the best and the worst of them against Dundee United. We've seen predominantly this season the worst of them. Danny Rohl said he'll have a couple of training sessions before the game. It's a tough away game, but I think it's a winnable away game on the balance of, if you look at the two squads. He just needs to find a way to win, and I'd be really fascinated to see how he does that, because you would imagine he's going to be a bit pragmatic tomorrow night. Does he change the formation? Does he just go back to basics a wee bit? I know he played different formations at Sheffield Wednesday. I think
basics will come into it. I think on that surface against a team who I watched last season play St Mirren were very strong, very physical, sort of tall players. They're very Scandinavian type team. They weren't a Bodo Glimt trying to pass the ball through. They were physical. They were big. The set pieces were good. They were in about St Mirren. It was a proper physical two legs. Rangers should be better than them, man for man. But it's when Dundee United in the second half say, forget this, get in their faces, get the ball forward, let's get chasing after them, get behind them. And they've got no pace to get back to you. If that's what Bergen want to do, Danny Rohl's only got those 2 days, a couple of training sessions to say, okay, here's how we play this, and I need 30% more out of you. Don't go hiding. Don't go leaving it to somebody else. And can you instill that in players in 48 hours?
But I think it's maybe the only thing. I think you can only. We talk about basics. I don't think you can put a style of play in. I don't think you can work in patterns of play. I think you have to find a way to get more out of your players. I think it's probably the only thing you can do with the time you've got. You can probably work in patterns of play to an extent, but you're not going to see Danny Rohl's style of play for a long time yet. I think Danny Rohl has to go in, and you can remember that open letter Rangers put out. They need some, what was it they said? They need a leader with the character and skill set to get more out of the players or the best out of the team. He's only 36, but he seems quite a chirpy character. He seems quite a confident guy. He will have to go in and find a way to motivate those players to give them more. He has to.
Do you know what though? Any player who needs to be motivated, I don't think should be in the door anyway. Motivation comes from your actions. It doesn't come from somebody standing up and making some big Al Pacino speech. Motivation comes from your own actions, right? And the actions of Rangers players this season have shown that they are not self-motivated individuals, and I think that makes his job really difficult.
Are they self-motivated, or do they just struggle with the pressure?
Well, it's the same thing. Yeah, because no matter what, look, you're writing a match report at a cup tie at 8 o'clock at night on the other side of Europe that goes to extra time and penalties, and the officer in your ear screaming at you to get copy over, and you've got to get it right. You motivate yourself by the fear of not doing it right. That's what you need. That's what you need under pressure. And I'm watching Rangers players under pressure. In games they should be winning 3-0. St Mirren, Motherwell, Dundee United, Dundee, whatever, and shrinking under pressure. And that's where Danny Rohl has got to find a way to not just change their intensity on the ball and how many sprints they make, and not just to make sure that wingers stop running up to fullbacks and turn them back and giving it back to the fullbacks. He's got to get inside their heads, and he's got to say, you're better than this. You have to be better than this.
And that's his first test.
Yeah.
That is his first test. Everything else is irrelevant to me. He could go out and play 4-4-2, 4-4-1-1, whatever tomorrow, and it just has to be a way of get a result, a draw, and go home.
And that's the thing Russell Martin never understood. Russell Martin wanted it to be style first. This is how I want to play. The players will play my way, right? And wins will come. And that will stick with me forever. That quote, when he was interviewed on Sky after the Falkirk game, and Luke Shanley basically had him pinned against a wall, and he said, but isn't it just about winning? And he said, well, no, there's no point just winning games if it's not for a higher purpose.
I know.
And Danny Rohl came out, and whether he's been briefed on this, I don't know, but Danny Rohl says, no, you win, and then you win, and then you win, and then you get confidence, and then you bring in a style. And that's exactly what... So if he can get that through to those players by tomorrow night to make them look like they're going in the right direction, I think the fans will cut him some slack.
Whether he's been briefed on that or not, I think he's been wise enough to realise it.
Yeah.
Because you, as I said, maybe come the start of next season, when you've got a full pre-season and you've got your squad and all that, you can say, right, this is how I want to play it. It's going to be very, very hard to do that in the short term.
Because in basically a fortnight or 14, 15 days' time, they could be out, pretty much out of Europe. They could be out the League Cup. They could be miles adrift in the league. Or they could suddenly be back fighting. That's how big these 2 weeks are. Yeah, exactly. And that's why the mistake Rangers have made, if they think Danny Rohl's that good, the mistake they've made in not putting him in June rather than at the end of October is going to be shown up to be an enormous mistake.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
If he picks them up over the next couple of weeks, fans are going to say, where was he in June? Why did we have that 123 days of nonsense?
Of Russell Martin.
Of Russell Martin, which will become known as nonsense. I think another manager who hasn't picked his words as carefully as Danny Rohl is Brendan Rodgers. Yeah. You alluded to it at the start of the show. I wanted Ferraris, they gave me Honda Civics. However, he's saying this 20 minutes after they've just lost to a team of Fiat Unos. And with all respect to Dundee, because if you're going to judge players on their car value and he wants Ferraris against Honda Civics, what has Stephen Presley put together? Loan players and free transfers and youth players. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about sort of bangers.
It was a misjudged comment, Bill. Yeah. And I think if that had been uttered 2 days after the transfer window shut, I think most Celtic fans would have said, you're right, Brendan, that's a disgrace what you've been landed with. However, I think results since then, performances since then, and people are now starting to look back to last season, and given the fact that Celtic's transfer window was a shambles, basically, right? Everybody agrees with that. But it doesn't have to be you're with the board or you're with Brendan.
Yeah.
You can also think that the manager is not getting the best out
of what
he's got.
And he's not.
Brendan Rodgers still got 2 wingers that cost £10 million to Leckie, Balabisha. Ian Ancho's come in big wages. Dyson Maida's transfer out was blocked. He has kept Rio Hatate. He's got Kieran Tierney in. He's got Benjamin Nygren in. He, not really long, Greg Taylor obviously I missed, but Kieran Tierney, as I said, come in. He's got Sirachi in, Uruguayan internationalist. There's one glaring hole in the Celtic squad, right, and it is a Kuhn type, it's a Patrick Roberts type.
Somebody that picks the locks.
And Alistair Johnson's been a big miss.
Big miss.
Get that. But I don't think domestically the squad is anywhere near as bad as been made out, right? Anywhere near as bad. Celtic have lost some players, but I do not think, if you look at player for player, that the squad is such a downgrade as it was last season. And we can talk about the Champions League, you can talk about Europe, you can talk about playing against Braga, all that. But Celtic went to Dundee. As you said, it's a team put together for 2 bob and an orange, right?
With a manager who's under enormous pressure to lose his job.
And he said after the game, this is going to be a struggle for us this season. Absolutely. So he then came out after the game, when fans are, they're protesting against the board, but they're also starting to ask real questions about the style of play, the performances and the manager, to come out and start talking about Honda Civics and Ferraris, I think it was just a complete misjudgment. I think if you see the reaction, people are saying, we don't like the board, we're protesting against the board, but you need to get your finger out as a manager and a squad of players.
And I don't think
it's a tipping point now.
It is a tipping point where, and I think Brendan is pandering to the fans a little bit by saying, well, it's the board. It's still saying it's the board, it's the board. Almost as if we're all on the same side and they're the ones that are letting us down. But in the same way as Russell Martin should have got 50% more out of the squad he had, however good or bad you think those players are, they're still players that are on a far better level of wages and transfer fees than anybody further down the league. And he's now still sitting with a team full of highly paid, multi-capped footballers who were slower and less brave and less direct and less honest than Dundee and Sunday. I think a lot of Celtic players went, I'll wait for somebody else to do this.
Yeah. And that's where I think the manager has to be the one responsible for finding a way to win a game like that, finding a way to get the best out of the players. As I said, right, Celtic's we'll say it again, Celtic's transfer window was horrendous. However, when all said and done, they've still got a squad capable. And if he thinks that right winger is so important to his style of play, and he's not got one that he likes, even though Yang's a South Korean international, and James Forrest, the most decorated Celtic player of all time, then find a different way. I remember Neil Lennon was going through a real bad patch. Probably the COVID season, the season that got disrupted.
Yeah.
Celtic couldn't win a game, they were playing terrible. And he changed, they went to a diamond and he put Griffiths and Edward up front. Celtic started blitzing teams. He just found a way to do it. Brendan Rodgers has to do the same. Now, he's gone to this back three a couple of times, but the personnel doesn't look right.
Nope.
He's not managed to get the right midfield balance. He likes Negrin as a number 8. I don't think he's ever really played there in his career. He's normally been a number 10 or coming off the right. Arne Engels disappeared. Callum McGregor, obviously, I think he's getting criticism way over the top, right? He's not been his best, but he's nowhere near the list of top of Celtic's problems.
It just shows you how high Callum's standards have been, I think.
Rio Hatate isn't really playing well, but again, if he's not playing well, leave him out of the team. Balak Wisha is in. Paulo Bernardo starts a game and then disappears again. Tenetke, I think, has got a lot of talent. I would query his end product, but you've still got players there, so you need to find a way to get the best out of them. You can't moan about, as I said, you can moan if Celtic won the Champions League if you had the squad you've got. You are domestically at Dens Park, great pitch, up against a team of trials. Let's be honest with you, right, Dundee? A team of trials, and Celtic looked, as you say, so pedestrian.
A team that have lost to Adrian Alloa this season.
That is not down to the board. For all their failings, for all their faults, for all their mistakes, you have been left with a very expensively assembled squad. You cannot start talking about Honda Civics and Ferraris.
Absolutely not. I mean, Dundee last time out lost 4-0 to Aberdeen. It could have been 6 or 7, right? And after that, I think, I said on here last week to Robert that I felt as if it was a massive game for Stephen Presley, not in whether they won or lost, because it was unlikely they were going to win, but in how they played. What did they give him? Did they roll their sleeves up, or did they run the flag up? And they were absolutely magnificent. I thought his tactics were bang on. His players carried everything out. They had pace. They had desire. They really looked as if they wanted it, you know. And they fully deserved to beat Celtic. Now Celtic now have 2 enormous games of football. So Thursday night, Sturm Graz at Celtic Park, where the atmosphere again is going to be bordering on how toxic can we go here. If they play the way they did against Braga, how can you see it turning out?
I think it's a defining period for the club. I do. And I think it's a defining period for the board and Brendan Rodgers in terms of the relationship, in terms of what happens going forward, because look, I think everybody knows he's not going to be the Celtic manager next season, right? It's just...
but it's how he leaves, isn't it?
And so he's not going to be there next season, right? You've got a January window coming up. I don't imagine anyone at Celtic, even after what happened at the summer, wanted this season to unfold the way it has done. I think there are clearly serious questions being asked of the board. There's serious discontent. However, I think there's now serious discontent in terms of the football as well. As I said, I think the two things are now running.
Because they're terrible to watch. That's one of the biggest things. And Celtic are terrible to watch.
I think the bigger picture is, if you have a manager who is entering the final period of his deal, if you're still getting results, then you keep it going, you make the best of it, and then shake hands in the summer. See if the results aren't coming and it's drifting and the squad's really flat and you're falling further behind in the league and you're struggling in Europe and you've got a January transfer window, it's going to be so crucial for Celtic. What do you do? Do you just say, look, let's just hope that this turns somewhere down the line, or do you just say, look, we're going to have a conscious uncoupling come this summer? Does that come a bit earlier? And I know that might sound drastic, but if Brendan Rodgers isn't going to be there long term and he's not, and there's not a great relationship there, and the team isn't performing, listen, what is the best way out of it?
We've both been in and around the Old Firm long enough to know that when things go wrong with one of them, they go wrong very quickly. Things unravel really quickly. You know, other teams kind of drift along. Rangers, Celtic, don't get me. Russell Martin just went, He went from hello, good, I'm the new guy, I'm the perfect fit, to being just dead in the water within days. And Brendan Rodgers, if he doesn't beat Sturm Graz, which he has to beat Sturm Graz, he then goes on Sunday for what's the biggest game of the season so far in Scotland. Hearts against Celtic. It's a high noon job on Sunday against a manager who is now at the highest point of his esteem of his career. against a team that's 5 points clear at the top of the league with a fervent 18,000 whatever behind them and that amazing amphitheatre there is at Tynecastle. What a day for Celtic to have to turn up.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I mean this period's defining. Big European game, Hearts away, Falkirk at home, which you would imagine Celtic should take care of, and then the semi-final against Rangers. And next 10 days, we could look at this and think, everything that's happened, it was just a blip. Brendan's going to go out in a high, Celtic went to a cup final, Celtic have beaten Hearts, so put Hearts in a place. If it goes the other way, I genuinely think there's serious decisions to be made.
So. And it's such a defining time. We talked about Danny Rohl. He comes in with people cutting him slack because he's inherited a shambles. And if he can make it any better, the fans will say, that's all right. But if Celtic don't get better very quickly, starting with the Graz game, carrying on into Tynecastle, because we've seen this before. Like, we saw it last season. Aberdeen running away with everything at the start of the season. They go and play the semi-final against Celtic Hampden, 6-0. Take that. And Aberdeen never recover. And that's what, when either of the old firm is in their pomp, that's what they do. They take you and they say, right, you've had your fun, beat it. But I don't see Celtic having that kind of. I mean, the time was, we've all been there, right? I've seen it with St Mirren before. You could be 2 up on Celtic or Rangers with 5 minutes to go and not be sure you were even going to get a draw. No. But Dundee were so comfortable. Yeah. You know, they defended it so well on Sunday, and you thought, well, where has it gone? Where's that Celticness gone?
That's why in the days of a free pass for Brendan Rodgers and the players are now done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they had a free pass after the transfer window for a wee while. Yeah. But with the more stale performances, people now start to think...
Stale, that's a great word for it. They are very stale.
Hold on a minute here, right? Yes, it was far from perfect. Yeah. It was unacceptable to a point. However, you still have enough domestically to be playing far better. And if I had £1 for every time I get a text from people on Sunday night saying, oh, do you know, I mean, Celtic have only won 13 out of the last 29 games in all competitions, and people are now starting to say, oh, well, the Scottish Cup final, and you look at the performance against Rangers recently, and you look at this, and you look at that, and it's not getting any better. To be honest with you, the performance on Sunday, as Brendan Rodgers used the word, unacceptable. So I think for him, for the club, this is, it's just going to, everything that happens in the next 10 days is going to shape the rest of the season.
However, they play Hearts on Sunday, and Hearts, you can do nothing but give Hearts so much praise under Derek McInnes. They went to Kilmarnock on Saturday. Derek's returned to Rugby Park, difficult place to go, and it was no problem. 3-0, easy peasy. They look such an assured football team just now, don't they?
I know, they do, and it's I think it's healthy for Scottish football.
Of course it is.
Right? It is great to see someone different having a real go. Yeah. I would counter that by saying it's so early in the season.
Of course it is, yeah.
But see last year, when Aberdeen were doing this, and everybody said, oh, you're a cynic. I said, this will never last. This will never last, right? Because I just don't think they're good enough. I think they've flipped a lot of results. Hearts are playing with a swagger. Hearts have got a massive squad, right? Yeah. And I know Tony Bloom, Andrew McKinley came out on Tuesday, was very keen to say, look, there's been a lot of stuff that if we're still in contention, Tony Bloom's going to chuck this and that at it. He can't because of youth rules. There's no going to be. However, they've already signed Kazakhstani winger. There is scope for more to come in. Aguiu, the record signing, by all accounts, the best signing, is yet to really play.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they're far better equipped to sustain a challenge. And say they do beat Celtic, right, on Sunday, I'll ask you this question. If Hearts have that kind of lead, right, if you started a season of 28, 29 games and gave Hearts an 8-point head start and an 11-point head start in Rangers, for example, would you fancy me to see it out?
I would have said that in previous years, if I was, again, if you said to me, again, I'm back to what I said a minute ago, if you said to me that my team could be 2 goals up on Rangers or Celtic with 5 minutes to go, would I be confident generally of winning the game? I'd say no. This season I'd say yes. And if Hearts can get 8 points ahead of Celtic, and then however many they'd be ahead of Rangers, depending on what Rangers do the weekend, let's say it's still 13 or whatever it is. Do you know, week by week, it's a bit like Danny Rohl said, you win a game, then you win a game, then you win a game. And Hearts are not made. Derek's not made any promises, and he's doing that brilliant thing already, saying, "You'll want us to lose. You'll hate us. You'll want us to fail." And he's building this force field around his dressing room, which I think is brilliant. And every week they come they didn't start very brightly against Kilmarnock. It didn't look as if, and then suddenly they get a set piece. Boof! There you go. That's one. And one of the great things they've got this season is the centre halves are chipping in with goals. Their midfield are chipping in with goals.
Yeah,
Lawrence Shanklin's back to being a centre. It's not all about Lawrence Shanklin, but he can get back to relaxing as a centre forward and saying, "My chance will come." I just find what they're doing. Braga's been a great signing. Harry Milne's been a tremendous signing. Big goalkeeper Sholau looks pretty good.
Like him.
I just feel as if there's a team there. There's an all-round team, and I think it's far from guaranteed they're going to beat Celtic. If they could beat Celtic on Sunday and go 8 points clear, then it is on.
Yeah, and I think what is, look, Derek McInnes, I'd imagine, will be saying, as you're saying, he's saying the stuff, everybody wants us to, we're annoying people, all that sort of stuff. Right? Look, he's still to go to Celtic Park twice. He needs to go to Ibrox again. He needs to go to Pittodrie twice. He needs to go, you'd think, Easter Road twice, you would imagine. Right? He's Hearts have Paisley again. Hearts have got so many, and they've lost at Paisley early in the season. Hearts have got so many huge, and that's what I'm saying, it's so early days. I just feel that they're better equipped to take care of the rest.
Yes, they've got a balanced squad now, which they didn't have before.
And see I remember both Celtic and Rangers going to Tynecastle in recent years, and you think it's a bear pit. And to be honest with you, they've cruised it at times. I can't see that happening on Sunday.
No.
And this is a Celtic team in the doldrums, basically.
Yeah.
Rangers spoke about there. I mean, Hearts beat Rangers 2-0 a couple of weeks ago. We were there. So I just think they're better equipped to sustain it to a point. Yeah. If you're asking me right now, I don't think they will win the league, but I think they can sustain a challenge. Yeah. And I would love them to sustain a challenge for as long as possible.
Absolutely brilliant, yeah.
But I'm saying I don't think they'll win it because Rangers are already trying to do something to revive their season, and Celtic by hook or by crook have to do something to revive their season. Whether that's big signings in January, whether that's a change of formation, or where they look at the bigger picture.
Well, the way I put it in my column on Monday was that sooner or later in Scottish football, what you call the natural order always seems to come back to us. So Celtic will be up there, Rangers will be up there. But it's how long can Hearts keep defying that natural order? And I think the way Derek's doing it, game by game, minute by minute within games, the way he's able to change his system within games to suit the moment, I don't see why they can't keep going. If they can keep boys like Craig Halkett fit, which is really important. Disciplinary wise, they're so much better. I mean, last season, if I was doing the fixed odds, I was straight in Cammy Devlin, booking whoever they were playing. Start a fight in an empty house. Now Cammy Devlin is so much more reliable about the place, and Derek seems to have brought a calmness to the whole situation. So massive. I'm so looking forward to this game on Sunday. Hearts Celtic is going to be fantastic.
Hearts Celtic, but every Hearts game just now is,
I know, it's big.
Because you think to yourself,
it's box office, isn't it?
Because it's pressure. Can they handle the pressure? And that's what I'm saying. Like, you always like watching Aberdeen at Hearts at Pittodrie, but the next time Hearts go up there, because Aberdeen will be trying to put them. It's just refreshing in Scottish football to see another club having a real go. And incidentally, I actually think Aberdeen, we're about to talk about Aberdeen getting a house in order, St Mirren a great team, Motherwell playing good football, Falkirk are doing brilliant. I don't want to look at Dundee's result. Hibs against Rangers next midweek, massive. Hibs again, really entertaining team to watch. I just feel as if the league's quite a good place now.
It is. Aberdeen are in a better place than they were a couple of weeks ago when it was when Jimmy Tulane looked as if he was heading towards the exit at Pittodrie. I would have thought a lot of people thought he was out in his ear, and they've turned it around. They get the 4-0 against Dundee. They then smash and grabbed, gritting teeth at 96 minutes at Paisley on Saturday, which annoyed me rather. But it's the first time they've won there in like 7 years. It was a massive result for them. It's a magnificent goal by Lasdic. Absolutely fantastic goal. And they got a bit of luck. I didn't think the goal should have been disallowed for St Mirren, but there you go. But suddenly they go to Athens, 5:45 tomorrow night against Ike, and you're thinking, could they maybe go in 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, they said they're going to get pumped. No. But they have
they've got something about them.
Something about them now.
I remember we sat here a couple of weeks ago when they're in real pressure, and I think you were more than justified. We were both more than justified to say, everybody keeps telling us they've got good players, everybody keeps telling them a false position, you need to start showing it. Yeah. And they have started showing it. And credit to Jimmy Teal, well done.
Boy, Carlson's doing well.
He's a good player.
Lasdic looks as if he could be a centre forward for them.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing to think of the one he refused to take against Motherwell, and then the audacity then shows against St Mirren to do the full Berbatov in the touchline.
That was honestly, that's one of the goals of the season. That's going to be one of the goals. Absolutely sensational goal. So do you fancy them to get anything in?
I think it's going to be tough, right? Because AEK, decent team, will roll out the cliche, no easy to go there in terms of hostility.
Yeah.
But look, I think they can go. They ran Shakhtar Donetsk pretty close, and I think they can go there with confidence and a bit of shackles off. Really, you know, just go, have a go. They've got threats. You know, we're starting to see guys, as you say, that they've brought in, being a bigger goal threat. Yeah. I would always worry about Aberdeen's defence. I still don't think that
it's a little bit soft,
as secure as it possibly could be. And Dimitar Mitov, to me, is a guy who's either borderline world class or he's throwing them in.
Absolutely.
So they need a big performance from him as well.
They do. But I think the thing with Aberdeen fans, they didn't want Jimmy to lean out the door.
No.
They were willing him to turn it round. And I think there's a lot of goodwill from here. So good luck to Aberdeen. Good luck to all the Scottish teams in Europe this week. Rangers 5:45 in Bergen. Robert Greve will be there. You can follow everything online and in paper in the Scottish Sun. You at Celtic? Who's at Celtic tomorrow night?
Derek.
Derek McGregor.
Derek McGregor and Ben Ramage are there.
Yeah.
I'll be in the office with Roger directing traffic.
The traffic, brilliant.
I'm sleeping.
So wishing all the Scottish teams. I want to finish with a quick one on VAR. I thought that was one of the worst VAR decisions I've ever seen in my life on Saturday. Motherwell against Falkirk. Great win for Falkirk, but they know themselves they got away. One of my pal Neil, big Falkirk fan, texted me straight after the game saying, I cannot believe the one we got away with today. Yeah. So Ibrahim Said goes in, uses his body against Brad Spencer, who goes to ground. Motherwell break away. Said gets the ball back, waltzes through about four of them, scores what would have been probably the goal of the season, and he's brought back for a foul which referee Stephen McLean, who's right in front of it, doesn't see. Brad Spencer doesn't appeal for. None of the Falkirk players put their hands up. And then Varley saying, no, come across, look at this, it's a foul. It's not a foul. It's never a foul in a million years.
No, it's not a foul. I was covering the game, very confusing in the stadium because you don't get replays. You're a tannoy saying, oh, there's got a check for a foul. Callum Scott was a VAR, as you say, look back at it, advise Stephen McLean to go and have a look. When you see it back, both of us look back, you think, well, how did he ever come to that decision? Yeah. But he does, he rules a goal out. I think it's one of those ones that's very rare where pretty unanimously, you're talking about Falkirk fans saying we won. People are saying that was the wrong call, but the reward for Stephen McLean is Hearts v Celtic on Sunday.
Yeah, good luck, Stephen. I'm not even going to get into the VAR of this St. game because I just get too annoyed. But it's never been disallowed either. Yeah,
it's not been. No, it wasn't a good weekend for VAR. There's been a couple of dodgy ones in the Champions League last night as well, Tuesday night. But VAR's here to stay. We just need to get the people in the hut somewhere, wherever it is, the hut in
who can actually use it.
The Baillieston hut to use VAR properly. And Ibrahim Said, he was outstanding.
Yeah, he's very good, isn't he?
He was robbed of one of the goals this season.
Anyway, David, thank you very much for your company today. Good luck to Rangers, to Aberdeen, to Celtic in Europe. Good luck to everybody at the weekend. We go to the game, wherever you go, whatever you do, just enjoy your football. We shall be back next week. Like, subscribe, see you soon.